Phil Collins' departure from Genesis was the end of a musical era. But why did he leave the band that made him a radio star? The news that Phil Collins was leaving Genesis was presented with levity. The group's 1996 statement read, "Genesis are currently seeking a vocalist. For the past 20 years, drummer Phil Collins has been temping as a singer to great acclaim. Now, however, he has decided to move on in order to concentrate on his solo projects." To call Collins acclaimed might have been a stretch at the time. While a singer and his band were unavoidable on the radio in the 80s and 90s, he became so associated with inoffensive pop ballads that he assembled an army of vocal critics against him. Some people blamed him for the transformation of Genesis from a more interesting conceptual band to a more simplistic pop sound after Peter Gabriel left. Such comments linger to this day, and Collins, who has admitted to feeling overexposed at the height of his fame, later felt the sting of being a media whipping boy. But the tide of opinion on him had just started to turn by 1995, and his move into solo projects wasn't necessarily a bold new direction. After all, he had been juggling his work as an individual with his time in Genesis throughout the 1980s. One of his greatest hits, In the Air Tonight, came off his first solo album from 1981, Face Value.
Phil Collins' solo career seems to be more commercial, and therefore more satisfying in a narrower way.
A few years before the split was announced, Collins' album Both Sides didn't do as well, so one might have expected him to take refuge in the stability of a band. However, he was more than ready to go his own way. A persistent story holds that Phil Collins left Genesis because of his hatred for a single song, Burning Rope. The source for this claim is an interview Collins gave to Modern Drummer in 1997. The musician explained, "To me, this song is a period piece. It doesn't make it in the 20th century. I know there are people who like this music, but I just couldn't get up on stage and play or sing this kind of material anymore." However, Collins never claimed to hate Burning Rope, and the timeline is a little awkward for anyone wanting to pin his departure on the song. It was released in 1978, almost 20 years before his departure. The drummer gave a more full explanation for why he left the group to the Baltimore Sun, and he brought up his solo album Both Sides as a contributing factor, rather than any Genesis song. That album may not have spawned any hit singles and faced mixed reviews on first release, but Collins was proud of it. He elaborated, "I felt that I'd arrived at a place, musically speaking, that really was the most fulfilling for me." It was a long time from when Phil Collins first felt it was time for him to go his own way to when he finally left Genesis. Despite his desire to leave, he still enjoyed working with bandmates Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford, and he knew the split would be hard to go through with. Before he told them his plans, he told the band's manager, Tony Smith, who advised him to sleep on it before making any big decisions. When Banks and Rutherford started talking about doing another album, however, there was no avoiding the issue. According to Collins, the split was an amicable one when it arrived. He told The Sun, "Mike said, 'You want to leave. We understand. You want to do something else. It's cool. It could be me, could be Tony.' And Tony said, 'Well, this is a sad day, but I understand.'" Collins would later say that he was glad to see Genesis carry on without him, as he never wanted his departure to mean the permanent end of the band. The lighthearted tone of the band's announcement was designed to soften the blow for fans. Collins had another album out within a year, Dance Into the Light, and Genesis put out Calling All Stations with Ray Wilson on vocals in 1997. They've toured ever since, but as of the making of this video, that was their last studio album.